This demonstration will show you how to use the Update List step to update a SharePoint list automatically within a K2 Process instance. You can use this workflow step in any scenario that requires updating the properties of a list within a site collection in your SharePoint environment. It's also a very helpful workflow step to use inside your automated governance or administration models applied to your SharePoint architecture. To show this, let's take a look at a workflow scenario that demonstrates this capability. I have a list in SharePoint called Manage Issue Tracking Lists that will basically be used to centrally manage an organization's issue tracking lists by department. When an item is added to the list, an issue tracking list automatically gets created via workflow in a subsite called Issues. For this demonstration, I'm going to run another workflow when an item is updated in that list that uses the Update List workflow step to update some of the properties of the item's corresponding issue tracking list. The basics of this new workflow are already set up, so I'll just focus on configuring the Update List workflow step. To begin, I'll drop this step on my design canvas and open it up to the Specify List window. I'll start with the Browse to List configuration first, by selecting the site collection where my issue tracking lists live. The next window in this path is called Specify Filters. Here you can plug values into fields that will help the wizard get a reference to the list in the selected site collection when the workflow step runs. Keep in mind, finding the list reference this way makes this list reference only available inside this wizard. Also of note, be as specific in the filter inputs as you can to narrow the wizard down to the exact list you want. The issue tracking list lives in the Issues subsite in my portal site collection, so I'll plug in the following value to the subsite relative URL field. Then, to help the wizard zero in on the specific list in that subsite, I can use any combination of these other fields if necessary. The ID field works the best if you have access to the list's GUID. But in this demonstration, I'll drop the title column from my list's item reference from the context browser in the name field, since that is what I used in the workflow to create the list. So in this case, these values would be enough to find my list if I want to use this method. However, I'm actually going to back up and select the Use a List that is referenced in this workflow option from the Specify List window. The Get List Reference step was used earlier in the workflow to make the reference to this list available to all steps, so I'll select it from the drop-down here. The next step after completing either Specify List configurations is the Specify Values window, where you can provide the input values to update the properties for the list. Let's take a look at the available options. You can configure versioning, menu options, and various other list settings in here. The subsite relative URL field also appears on this window. However, you can ignore this field in this context. For this demo, I'm just going to update the description value and toggle versioning for the list. To do this, I'll drag references for these fields to their respective slots from the list item reference. Also notice, you can drag and drop a context field on top of the Yes/No options, or click the button to the left of the field to open up a text box and hardcode a yes or no if you want. That's the last step for this wizard. So from here, I'll finish up and deploy the workflow, and then we can take a look at the working example. I already have some issue tracking lists created in this list, so I'll pick one here to edit. Before I make an update, let's flip over to the corresponding issue tracking list for this item and verify the description to show that it matches the current description from the managed list. Let's also take a look at the versioning settings. Notice that versioning is not currently enabled. Now I'll flip back to the management list, update the description, and turn on versioning for the item we had open. Save it, and now the update workflow should be running in the background. It should complete pretty quickly. So I'll switch back to the issue tracking list that corresponds to the item that I just updated. I'll refresh the page and notice the Create Version setting is enabled here. Now let's go back to the Settings page. And here, take notice that the description value for the list was updated as well. We would like to thank you for watching this demo on how to use the Update List Wizard. We hope you have a better understanding of how and when you can use this workflow step within processes used by your organization.